Hello and welcome to GameSack. We're talking about games that are not as bad as you may think that they are.
They might have gotten bad reviews from professional reviewers or your friends or just the internet in general. And you know what? Give them a shot. They might not be as bad as these people say.
Yeah, so let's take a look at a few that might deserve a little bit more of your attention. Altered Beast on the Sega Genesis really takes me back. This came with my system and I bought it when it was finally available in the Denver area. So yeah, this is the very first Genesis game that I ever played, and it's all I had to play for several days. Not like these days where I have a couple more games to choose from on the system. As you may have noticed when I inserted the cart, mine has kind of darkened over the years. I have absolutely no idea why it did this, but it did it on its own. Anyone have any ideas why this happened? Anyway, I was kind of an arcade junkie at the time, so this was a perfect pack-in for me. Yeah, maybe the nostalgia glasses are a bit thick for me, but really it's not that horrible. You play as a zombie who has been forced back to life to rescue the daughter of Zeus.
Rise from your grave.
Okay. Of course, you look perfectly fine and even your clothes are nice and clean. So you're strolling along fighting strange undead things when suddenly a two-headed white wolf appears. Of course you're gonna kick it like any good person would do. And when you do, it spits out a floating orb that when you grab it, you gain some mass. Now your attacks are even stronger. You can do this again and you become an even bigger beefcake. I like how everything grows except your tiny little head. That's okay, because you're not here to think. Do this a third time and you turn into a creature with unique powers, the Altered Beast. You change into 5 different beasts, including a werewolf, a were-dragon, a were-bear, a were-tiger, and finally a golden werewolf. Okay, only 4 creatures, that last one really doesn't count. Anyway, these all have their own unique attacks, like I said, if you can remember that far back. Neff, who is the boss of the entire game, appears 3 times throughout each stage. If you're the Altered Beast, then he'll alter himself and fight you. The good news is that he transforms into something that can easily be defeated by whatever beast you happen to be. If you encounter him in human form, well, he just doesn't want anything to do with you, so he just trots his ass off until you're good enough for him. Actually, the 3rd time you encounter him, he'll transform no matter what. You'll fight him as a human, and honestly, he goes down pretty easily that way. You can punch, kick, and jump, and they all have their own dedicated buttons, which was crazy awesome back in the day. The bad news is that there's only 5 stages in the game, and they go by pretty quick if you're good about transforming as fast as possible. The graphics are pretty good and faithful to the arcade. By that I mean it's a pretty damn good conversion for the time. You gotta remember that the arcade version was top tier stuff back then. There are extra layers of scrolling here that weren't even in the arcade. In fact, this is the only version of the game that actually does this. The music and sound are also really good for such a low memory cart, but the sound is all in mono, sadly. What's kind of weird is that the music restarts after any of the voices play. Speaking of the voices, I actually like them quite a lot.
Power up.
Yeah, everyone makes fun of "wise from your grave," but besides the mispronunciations, the actual sound quality of the voices kick ass. Not sure why they re-recorded them instead of just using them from the arcade though.
Welcome to your doom.
Welcome to your doom.
Like I said, this is based on the arcade version, and I thought it was really fun when it was new. I only ever got to level 2 in the arcades, but maybe someday I'll get the PCB.
Power up.
The first port of the game I played was on the Sega Master System. This one is crazy choppy. It's also missing stage 3, it's just gone. And let's not forget having to jump by pressing both buttons simultaneously. Sega really loved to do that on the Master System. Then there's the Famicom version in Japan by Asmic. I like how the status bar at the bottom takes up half the damn screen. This truly enhances the gaming experience. And for Altered Beast, the game also plays extremely fast. It's crazy. But it doesn't play well, as the collision detection is truly horrible. There's also a brand new stage in the game, but it's not very good. Then there's the PC Engine Hue card. This one actually looks more like the arcade than the Genesis version, well, at least the sprites do, not so much the backgrounds. It's also hard as hell. But I like how when you kill an enemy, the parts come flying towards the screen like in the arcade version. This game is also on the PC Engine CD and is actually slightly different from the HuCard. For one, it's less frustrating by far. They added more of the white wolves so that you can power up faster and you actually stand a chance. You need System Card 1.0 to play this one, and it's kind of hard to get a hold of. Otherwise, the game will freeze on you when you alter yourself into a beast. If you can resist turning into a beast, then you can play through the game. Graphically, there are actually a few changes here and there from the HuCard version, but it's fairly minimal. I like how the background turns black and white as you fight a boss like it does in the arcade.
Power up.
Here is a kick-ass side-by-side comparison of level 1 in all the different versions. What do you think? Honestly, if you can't play the arcade version, the Genesis is really the best one to play. It's also the only home port with the 2-player mode! This is awesome! How the hell else are you going to convince your friends that this is a true arcade experience at home? 16-bit power, yo! Some people hate this game so much that they actually get a little angry about it. Those people are silly. I'm really not sure what they were expecting. It's really not that bad.
Hook is an action platformer by Sony ImageSoft. This is the Super Nintendo version, but it's also on the Genesis and Sega CD. This game is based on the movie called Hook starring Robin Williams. The game was released to average reviews and it was just kind of there. It wasn't great, but it wasn't too bad, so it just didn't get much attention. You take the role of a grown-up Peter Pan who forgets that he was Peter Pan when he was younger. His 2 kids are kidnapped by Captain Hook and his pirates and brought back to Neverland. Tinkerbell comes along and somehow knocks you out and brings you to Neverland also to find your kids. Once you beat the introductory level, you finally remember that you are Peter Pan and you become skinny and wear the green outfit that Peter's known for. As you're playing the game, the first thing you'll notice is that Peter moves incredibly slow. There's no run button or anything of that nature, so you just casually walk your way through each level. It's really annoying, and all that kept going through my mind was, "Get your ass moving, Pan!" But he never does. Doo-doo-doo-doo, here I come. But he does kind of make up for it with the length that he can jump. Man, Peter can jump far, and that jumping mechanic actually feels really good. You'll be jumping over long gaps that when you step up to them, you'll feel that there's no way you can make it. But you do. Each level is loaded with bad guys, and all you have to fight them is your little dagger. Every now and again you'll find a sword that you can collect which will actually let you shoot a projectile. It's really cool, but once you take damage, you lose it and then go right back to your dagger. That's fine, because the dagger is strong enough to kill most enemies in one hit. Some require more, but they're still pretty easy. Surprisingly, your dagger has pretty good reach and you won't have to be on top of them to hit them. But somehow I feel that this game would be a lot more fun if I had something to throw at my enemies, like an apple or something. Also, the enemy AI for the most part is pretty lame. Most of them just walk back and forth on a platform and pay no attention to you. The only ones that do give you any heat are the ones that shoot at you. Their bullets are surprisingly accurate. They wouldn't be so damn tough if there weren't so many of them in one area. And this is where you'll have most of your deaths. The other places where most of your death comes from are places like this. Tinkerbell can give you limited flight with pixie dust. But these spiked corridors last a lot longer than the dust. How in the hell are you supposed to get past this? But still, for the most part the game is fairly easy. The patterns for the boss fights are super simple to figure out and you only have to hit them 3 times before they die. Once you beat a level, the rest of the Lost Boys are waiting for you. Oh, I'm sorry Lost Boys, did you have to wait long for me? I tried to finish the level as quickly as I could. Thanks for waiting though. Overall, this is actually a decent game with some nice graphics and a less than stellar soundtrack. Or you can play the Sega CD version, which has slightly less impressive graphics and orchestrated music from the movie. While not a AAA title, it's definitely not a shovelware title either. Have you played this game? What did you think?
Alright, here's the mighty China Warrior for the incredible TurboGrafx-16 by the very talented Hudson Soft. This game stars a Bruce Lee lookalike in his quest to walk towards the right. He can't turn around at all, and he can only stop walking when he's attacking. As you can see, the sprites are huge! They made it like this to show how much better the TurboGrafx is than the NES, or rather how much the PC Engine is than the Famicom in reality. It kinda worked too, as the PC Engine eventually started to outsell the Famicom. When the game finally launched in the US, it shared the spotlight with other games with big characters like Last Battle on the 16-bit Sega Genesis. So the Turbo wasn't able to stand alone in that regard, but it made the 16-bit generation as a whole look a lot more powerful. And as everyone knows, bigger characters always means better gameplay. That must mean this game is one of the best games in the world, right? Well, no, not really. In fact, this game has a pretty bad reputation. Most people get frustrated after only playing a few minutes. There's a lot of attacks that are hurled at you from off screen, and they're often very hard to dodge. Then there's the stuff that rolls along the ground that can't be destroyed at all. All you can do really is jump over it. It does not take long to get a game over, or the end. This game really is all about memorization. Once you memorize stuff, you can usually do it pretty well. I always end up getting hit by something though. Everything can hurt you. Look at these gently falling fans. Well, be careful because they will take a chunk of your life bar if they touch you. Speaking of your life bar, you can usually add more life to it a couple of different times per stage. One way is to kill a certain enemy who gives it to you. The other is to hit the floating thingy here, and that can be extremely hard to do. If you manage to store up enough life, your meter will turn gold. This is essentially your secondary life bar, and when that runs out, you'll start draining your normal silver one. As I'm sure you've noticed by now, you can punch, kick, and jump. You can also occasionally do a much more powerful attack when you fight the level bosses. I haven't quite figured out how exactly this happens, but I never complain when it does. There's not a whole lot of variety in the enemies, bosses, and projectiles that attack you. And there's not much in the way of the backgrounds either. Still, once things start clicking for you, the game turns out to be fairly fun. Managing to make it to a boss while only taking a hit or two is very rewarding. Yeah, I do wish the controls were more responsive, but you do get used to them. The graphics really aren't bad for such an early game, and the music is actually pretty nice. It's also really fun to play as a gigantic fake Bruce Lee. This game can currently be had for about $10 without the box and manual, and it's definitely worth that. But sadly, all TurboGrafx games are getting pretty expensive. So if this happens to be bundled in a lot of TurboGrafx games that you buy, don't feel bad. It can actually be fairly fun.
Wow, Joe, you really went into depth with Altered Beast there.
Damn straight I did.
I'm pretty surprised. I like that.
Well, that's because it gets so much undeserved hate, and it's not the greatest game in the world. We're not saying that it is, but come on, it's not that bad.
It's completely playable.
Indeed. And let's look at some more playable games.
Yoshi Story for the Nintendo 64 is a game that I kind of had high hopes for. I remember buying the Japanese version of the game in California when I was on vacation there. The game hadn't been released in the USA yet, and I had to have it even though I couldn't play it for another week being on vacation and all. When I did finally get home and actually played the game, I was kind of disappointed. Firstly, I was wanting more of a 3D adventure game in the lines of Super Mario 64. I loved just about everything about that game and thought it would have worked really well with Yoshi. Well, even though I was disappointed at it not being in 3D, I was okay with the side-scrolling platformer that we got. This is supposed to be a sequel to Yoshi's Island for the Super NES, and I really like that game. One thing that's nice about this one is that I'm not hauling around a crying baby Mario. This was great, and as I started playing, I was really digging the graphics. Still to this day, they're beautiful. I love all the backgrounds, from looking like paper cutouts in one level to cloth and stitches in another. This was giving me high hopes for the future of 2D gaming. Before you start your first playthrough of the game, a lucky fruit is picked for you. As you are playing through each level, you collect fruit. If you collect the lucky fruit, you'll get point bonuses for collecting them in a row. Once you've collected 6 of these in a row, you get a little heart that parachutes down and turns Yoshi into Super Happy Yoshi. Being super happy gives him invincibility, a higher flutter jump, unlimited eggs, and more cool things. But soon his depression will kick back in and he'll stop being super happy. Enjoy it while it lasts, little Yoshi. Just so you know how well you're doing, the fruit you've collected is displayed on screen at all times. It follows the edge of the whole screen. This has got to be one of the most stupid ideas ever. Who in their right mind would think that gamers would want more clutter on the screen? This is ridiculous, and a lot of times you're thinking, oh, there's one of the lucky fruits, I shall now put forth some effort to collect it. But you've already collected it and you can't tell because of how it's displayed. So once the level ends, the story progresses, then all the Yoshis start singing. Let me tell you that Yoshis have horrible voices and they should never, ever, ever, ever sing, ever. It really is painful to listen to, but thankfully it's a very short song. The story plays out through a storybook-style setting. You can pick which one you want to tackle, and after you beat that level, you go on to the next page and don't have to play the other levels first. This feels really strange, but whatever, you can still go back and play them if you want. Yoshi's health meter is that flower in the upper corner. If he gets hit, the flower loses petals. When he eats fruits and enemies, the petals restore. Sounds easy enough, but Yoshi will still die. You have 6 lives per game, and these are all represented in different color Yoshis. Once you die, you pick a different color to continue playing. And of course, once you've wasted all 6 lives, the game is over. Back in the day, I really didn't like how this game turned out, and I just put it away and forgot about it. And I think most people probably did the same. It's been 17 years since I played this game, and coming back to it, I'm still annoyed by the features I mentioned earlier. But for some reason though, I'm having more fun playing this game these days. It really isn't as bad as I remember it, and I can appreciate a lot of what it's trying to do. I still love the graphics and the backgrounds. I really like how they handle the reflections on the water here. The level music is pretty good, even though most of it is just a variation of the one song. Yoshi felt a little bit slippery to control, but it didn't take long before I got the hang of it again. There's a lot more strategy to this game than I remember, and I like that aspect. It makes me want to play the levels more thoroughly and find all the secrets instead of just collecting the required number of fruit to make the level end. This is a solid game if you can get past a few annoyances. What are your thoughts about this one?
This is Shadow Blasters on the 16-bit Sega Genesis. Most people see this as a weak game from a strange low-rent third party called Sage's Creation. I mean, who the hell are they? Maybe if it were by someone like Konami, I might consider trying it, but come on, Sage's Creation? I don't think so. Actually, that is the wrong attitude to have because this is an action platformer that's pretty damn cool. I originally rented the Mega Drive version where it's called Shittin' You. And I kind of hated it at first. The graphics look extremely weak and the colors are really dark. Plus, it didn't take long for me to die. But that was before I figured out how this game works. At the beginning of the game, you can choose from 6 stages and you can play them in any order you like. After that, you choose which character you want to play as. There's 4, including Horatio the Ninja, Tiffany the Ninja, Leo the Kendo Guy, and Marco the Buddhist Priest. They each have slightly different attributes as far as movement and jumping and the like. They also have their own different method of attack. These are based on the 4 elements like fire, wind, lightning, and whirly blades. You can hold down the attack button to fill the gauge for a more powerful attack. When some enemies are defeated, they'll leave behind different colored icons. Some of these enhance your abilities like speeding you up, helping you jump higher, or increasing your attack power. If you collect enough of the white ones, your default attack will become as powerful as your hold down the button attack. There's also a screen clearing special attack that's the same for each character. When a character gets killed, you get to select from a different character and it respawns you right where you died. So in effect, you have 4 lives. But the cool thing is that you can select characters whenever you want just by pressing start. So if one is getting low on life, you can just switch to another. If you happen to come upon a life power up, then you can switch back to that character so he can get his life back. The same goes for powering up your characters. They all power up independently, so you can switch them out and make sure they all level up evenly. Yeah, you'll be accessing the menu a lot, going back and forth, but if this doesn't bother you in Mega Man, it's probably not going to bother you here. Unfortunately, the game is pretty easy and anyone can blow through it in less than an hour thanks to the unlimited continues. When you continue, you start out fresh. All your characters are back, but they start out at their lowest power levels. If you want a better challenge, I suggest you put it on hard. Still, it's a really fun game that I find quite enjoyable. The graphics are okay. They're certainly nothing special, not even for an early Genesis game, but they get the job done. The music is pretty good though. Lots of fairly deep bass and good melodies. Kim Song-dong did a great job here. And would you believe that this is the same master musician that scored the music in one of the most beloved hits ever on the Genesis, Zoom? Yes, it's true. Thanks, Kim Song-dong. So yeah, at first this might seem kind of like a poor man's Mystic Defender, but it really is much more than that. I definitely recommend this one as it's a good pull off the shelf and playthrough type of game. Oh, and it's 2 players simultaneous as well. And a big thank you to Sage's Creation for localizing this one.
Milon's Secret Castle on the NES is definitely one of those games that not many people care for. I remember when I got this game back in the late 80s. I had no idea what was going on and I ran around just shooting all the enemies on the screen. I kept wondering if anything was going to happen and nothing did, and I just got completely frustrated. At some point I was just randomly shooting my bubbles and I hit a block. It disappeared and I was floored because, well, something actually happened. From that moment on, I shot my bubbles at everything. Something had hooked me, and I needed to find everything that my bubbles would break in this game from here on out. This game is not easy by any means. It's the classic tough as nails NES game that we've all played before. It's no different here, and once you die, it's game over and you get no continues. This means starting all over from the beginning. It's quite frustrating, but in all seriousness, it doesn't take long to get far once you know what to do and where to go. Each room in this castle is filled with hidden goodies. As you play, you'll collect coins to buy essential items. These include shoes that will help you jump higher, but only at certain areas with springs. You can get a lantern which will make dark places lighter. You can also get a jacket that will protect you from fire. All of these items are necessary to beat the game, so money is your priority as nothing is free. You collect money in different ways, mainly by finding it hidden in blocks in each area. You can also get money by playing a minigame. If you can find a secret block by bumping your head, kind of like Mario, then you get taken to a minigame. Here you must catch the musical notes. The more you catch, the more money you get, and the more money you get, the easier it is to buy these items. Milon has limited life when he starts. You can gain more life by finding the secret honeycomb in each level. Search for these because you'll need them. Milon is a weak character, and when he gets hit by enemies, it won't take long for him to die, so find those damn honeycombs. Enemies do randomly drop hearts that will fill 1 bar of your life. And there's lots of times where I'd farm for hearts where enemies spawn. It's slow, but it's a good way to refill your life. Also hidden each level is the Hudson Soft Bee. When he's released, he'll fly off in a certain direction. Do your best to catch him because he can give you an invincibility shield that will let you take a few more hits. I do not recommend chasing bees in real life though. The best thing to do is get this shield right before you fight a boss. The bosses in this game are tough. They jump around and shoot a steady stream of projectiles. You must hit them in the head to do damage, and they take more than a few hits to die. If I had one complaint about him, it's that I wish they had a life bar so I know how close I'm coming to killing him. Once you do kill him, you get a crystal. These crystals will help you out in many ways. Firstly, they'll help your bubble by extending its reach, or it will increase the size of the bubbles for a bigger hit zone. The best thing though is that you can now use it to continue your game. After you die, just push left and start and you'll continue fairly close to where you left off. This right here makes the game completely playable and beatable. The only thing is that you might have to leave your NES on for a few days straight while you do this, but damn, it's worth it. Milon controls okay. He is a little bit sluggish when he starts moving, but once he gets going, controlling him feels fine. When you first start a level, he shoots really slowly. If you collect the umbrella that enemies will randomly drop, this will let you shoot more bubbles and increase your firing rate. As far as the graphics are concerned, there's nothing amazing here. It looks just like what you'd expect from an early NES game. There's also really not a lot to say about the music. There's a few decent songs, but most of it's just blah. It repeats and sounds like something you'd hear at a circus. For me, this really isn't a bad game, and I imagine that there's more than a few of you who would agree with me.
And there you go. There are a bunch of games that are not as bad as you think.
If there's one thing that I've learned from this episode, is never ever trust somebody else's opinion or review, because it's never going to coincide with yours.
Exactly. And that's okay. You know, your opinion does not have to meld with ours or someone else's, and vice versa. All that good stuff. You know, make your own opinions on games.
That's right. You know, I know these people aren't going to agree with every game that we played here today. They're going to think a lot of them are crap, but whatever. We don't.
Yeah, we don't care. Anyway, what games do you guys think are perhaps a little better than, you know, we might think? In the meantime, thank you for watching GameSack. Hi, Dave.
Hey, Joe, how are you?
Good, good. So I was thinking the next time we cover games that aren't quite as bad as you might think, that I'd cover Beast Wrestler on the mighty 16-bit Sega Genesis.
No, that's actually a bad idea because this really is a bad game, Joe.
But it's not as bad as you might think.
No, it really is a bad game. I mean, you talked about this like 3.5 years ago, remember?
I don't know what they were thinking bringing this over, but they must have been desperate. You start the match, and what I think happens is that the game completely turns your controller off because it doesn't seem to work at all. You just lay there forever, but you're not defeated yet.
Yeah, this is a crappy game.
Yeah.